All right, class, welcome to lab number 24, where we're going to be discussing the next part of your lab replication project, in which this is the variables and measurement component of it. So you should have already turned in your study design and kind of a plan for what you're doing. I should hopefully be getting to those relatively soon to tell you kind of what my thoughts are and give you any kind of constructive criticism on them as well, and if I think it's a reality of a plan that I think could be done. So this is again just straight off from the assignment sheet. Hopefully you've already found it within Canvas. If you're not able to find this OSF instructions for the online adaptation of the OSF assignment, go ahead and email me. But I've literally just taken a screenshot of what we're going to be doing. So for the variables and measurement component of this, what we really want you to do is actually start to operationalize the constructs that you said that you're going to utilize. So what I mean by actually operationalizing what your construct is, let's take, for example, if you're measuring depression. Well, what measure would you use to measure depression? There's a lot of different measures out there for depression already. For example, one of the ones that I use quite frequently is the Center for Epidemiological Studies Depression Scale 10, also known as the CESD-10. In order to measure depression. It has items relating to depression. And so you'll be doing the same thing for whatever you decided. Maybe your outcome variable was something like self-esteem. Maybe you need to measure something like cheating or something like that. So you're going to go ahead and think about it in terms of what it is that you're going to be measuring. So the best way to do this is to actually look at the research and see how have other people studied this in the past. So I want you to think about the pros and the cons of each approach that we've kind of talked about in the semester so far. And really, the reason you need to do this now is because you're going to need to write a justification in your paper about why you chose these operationalizations of your measurements, right? So as a team. So this is something that's, if you do the work now, it'll be a lot easier for when you're doing the paper later of your methods paper. So remember, even if you're just doing some sort of survey, there's a lot of limitations for how you're doing it. So if you are trying to measure cheating behavior, how are you going to measure cheating behavior? Well, you can look at things from past studies, how have they done it, and give me some justification as to why you're doing it. It says here, to make sure that you do it, post your ideas on Canvas. I'll accept it through, Google Docs or some sort. It'd be really great if through the Google Docs you can give me some idea of kind of who's saying what in the Google document, either through comments or through like different colored text. I know I've seen a couple of groups do that. And there's something else to kind of keep in mind as well is that when you're doing these measurements, it's best to find different measures that measure the same construct, because as we've learned kind of in class, there's different ways you can measure the same thing, and it's good to kind of cross compare so that you have a better understanding and better validity for what you're measuring. And you can get calculations to see what the better measure was and a lot of other things with that. However, it's important to keep in mind, and this is something that I deal with a lot when I deal with youth populations, about you don't want to burden the participant too much. So a max of 1 to 2 measures per construct would kind of be ideal. Now, additionally, we want you to think through and how you're going to create these indices using the measures you select. So if you're using some sort of pre-existing measure, you'll likely want to combine some of the items in the same way to measure the same way that the original study did it, or the original measure was intended to do it. So make sure that if there's some sort of measure that you're using, that you're actually using it the correct way. You can't just go and remove items, line item veto or something like that. You can't be doing that. You need to use the entire measure and actually incorporate the entire thing, and use it in the way that they utilized it as well. So after you've settled on the measures that you've done, the measures that you'll use, you'll go ahead and enter this information into the OSF pre-registration page as well, by the deadline that's specified on the syllabus, which I actually am at a blank for right now, but if you look on your syllabus, it should be there. So just to kind of put everything into perspective about what the overall assignment is, so what we're going to have you do is you're going to operationalize your variables and constructs. And by doing this, you're going to be actually getting some measures, and you're going to be selecting the measures and codes that you're going to use to measure your constructs. Then determine how these indices will be made with your measures, if you're applicable. So, if this has, if there are rules to how your measures are going to be scored, I want you to give me some indication of how that is well, and then complete this in the Open Science framework as well.